First time ridden in a Western saddle. I want to apologize for the quality of this video. It is an older video that I took years ago to share with the owners, or to just have for my own records. I had no plans of it being a social media shared video, but I've decided to do my best to enhance the images and do some voiceovers. This way, I could still share the educational value within this footage. Because this equipment is new to him, I approach it as if he's never seen any equipment ever and hope that he just moves right through this process. If for some reason we hit a snag in his acceptance of this, we will work on it. You always want to work on things in the moment.
I haven't used the bareback side on him, so the bareback side's been certainly dry, material wise. So again, I'm going to go ahead and let them look at it.
I always let them look at anything new, and sometimes, even while they're still processing the experience, I might let them look at the same thing more than once. If, like in this case, he's not really interested in checking out the saddle, then I move on. I don't sit there and decide, well, nope, we got to look at it, look at it, look at it, look at it. Come on now, look at it. If he's not interested, I just move on. Although I am holding him with the lead rope, notice the slack. Normally, at this stage in their training, I make an exercise of dropping the rope on the ground so that they understand their responsibility of being ground tied. I don't really think there's a reason I didn't do that here, but please note that he has the responsibility to stand still through the slack in the line. It's raining right now, so he's becoming irritated by the rain, thinking it's bugs. At this point in the saddling process, I only put the saddle on tight enough to make sure it won't fall off or end up underneath his belly. I do not put it at its full tightened level at this point. I always tighten my saddles in 3 stages, 1 making sure it just won't fall off, 2 snugging it up and allowing them to stretch out a little bit, and then 3 tight enough for mounting. Because this is a totally different type of saddle than he's been exposed to so far, it's important to let him move around with it and feel where it bounces on his back differently, as if he's never experienced something strapped on him to this point before. Watching him trot around shaking his head makes it 100% certain that I would want to canter him before ever thinking about climbing in that saddle. If he's going to bounce around at the trot, he's definitely going to consider bouncing around at the canter. So let's work those bugs out before getting on. Ha ha ha, there it is. The reason I stopped him right when I did was because if you watch, his gait was smooth and a little bit more rhythmic the few strides before I stopped him. I wanted to reward him for that more rhythmic trot as opposed to the bouncing around. It's 100% my fault that I do not have my stick and string available to me to encourage him to pick up the canter as I ask for it, instead of having to try to wave him up into it. This is a lack of preparation on my part for sure. Shortening the rope here as I do puts me closer to him, therefore more at risk to get kicked. I highly recommend coming to the arena more prepared than I was here because it would have been better for me to ask him to canter and be able to support that ask more clearly.
Stop pulling on me.
You might question why I don't just turn him loose and drive him around the round pen at liberty, and my answer would be because I want to be able to stop him as a reward for when he finally finds rhythm or cadence to his movements. If he's loose, I don't have that contact where I can make the stop, where he can make the connection as to why he was stopped. When I mount a horse, I don't want them to just walk off before I'm done getting settled in the saddle. So, what I teach then, as they would want to anticipate the next step, that we hurry up and stretch. So, stretching around or laterally flexing to my toe instead of teaching them that walking off is the next step.
Saddle today. I don't do a whole lot with him. Hopefully we'll miss another shower. Had quite a bit of rain yesterday, so we yeah, but stuff. You're good. You're steering. Let's see if we got any good steering going on. Yeah, yeah. Huh? You like that? Well, he was like moose silly with it at first, but he's fine. It's a bigger coverage, you know. Okay. He went that senior he was good. Well then.
At this point in my career, Aiden was easily the biggest brat I had ever worked with. To his credit, though, he did grow up to be a very successful show jumper. As animated as he was, with the constant need to bounce around like Tigger, it was the perfect job for him.
You do that, you're gonna get to it there, but stop now.
There is nothing worse than trying to ride forward a horse that has no go.
You're not balanced. You're gonna do that.
So, one thing I haven't mentioned yet about Aiden is that he loved to size up something we were about to approach with the intention to kick it on our way past. I have dents in my building, as well as many dents in my round pen from my time with Aiden. I have to say, he often made me feel like a rag doll up there.
Stop.
All I could do is just keep trying to find his go button, because he was so likely to throw out kicks at things that we would ride past. I didn't want to introduce a crop or a whip at this point in his training because I did not want to escalate any kickouts into being full-on bronco bucks. I always start horses in a rope halter and rope reins. In a case like this horse, I wouldn't even consider putting a bit in his mouth, based on how often he jerks me around. I wouldn't want to land in his mouth with my hands just from simply being thrown out of balance.
I just threw away the one you broke already. What are you gonna do that? Not stop.
I admit there were times I needed to just stop and count to 10, because he was easily the most frustrating horse to work with.
Good boy. Hey, hey. No,
Unfortunately, part of using a rope halter as your head stall, you rely on the horse to have solid grasp of the one rein stop, and when they don't, they act like this guy. So the next obvious thing to do right now is to work on that lateral flexion, expecting his feet to stay still. That crashing sound leading up to our little excursion. Was Aiden kicking my round pen panels? This was not only a bad behavior, it was a habitual bad behavior throughout his training. Every dent I have in my round pen is signature artwork courtesy of my little buddy Aiden. While I do my calming count to 10, I decided to work on walk, trot, upward, and downward transitions. It is not good to let a horse frazzle you and take that into the lesson any further than you need to. Find a way to take yourself off of frustrated adrenaline before you move on. Otherwise, your energy could continue to cause a fight. I'll usually opt to work on something I know they're pretty good at. They get to refocus in a better, well behaved way. Once I know that I am no longer feeling frustrated, I will then refocus on the lesson that I was attempting to accomplish. In this case, we were working on the canter. Unfortunately for Aiden, this was an exercise whether bareback, English saddle, or Western saddle, he was not too keen on cooperating for.
No? Gonna let you walk. 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 Yeah. And now walk. Jog. Jog. No. Head. Walk. Jog. If you're right fire again, get out of that soft stuff there. Hey, hey, ho.
The canter is almost impossible to achieve,
You're not feeling it
but he
today,
has
are you,
certainly
miss?
mastered the hoe and stand still.
Not feeling it today, are you, love? Huh? Fine.
Our sessions would probably be much shorter if I had a more cooperative little friend. Unfortunately, Argument was Aiden's middle name. At one point, I was attempting to flop around like a rag doll up there intentionally to see if I could create enough chaos to cause him to want to canter out in front of
Let's
me.
go.
It didn't
Here, I
work.
got that. Good boy. Oh, good boy, good boy. I'm okay with that. He responded to my leg that time.
Maybe somebody would break down at this point and just get themselves a whip. But the problem is, like I said before, Aiden's go-to move is to bounce around. So far, he's been fairly respectful about how high up in the air he does that. I wouldn't want to turn it into something bigger by hitting him. I would definitely want to avoid encouraging him to turn into a bronco. I always say, if at the end of your session, when you turn your horse loose, your horse still wants to be with you, there's your feedback.